Hi, and welcome to GameFluent. Today on GameFluent, Risk. I'm going to teach you how to play Risk. You probably found a copy of this in your grandmother's attic and you're wondering how to play. Well, look through the rule book and it's a little long. I'll teach you how to play in here a couple of minutes and you can have some fun playing Risk today. It's really a fun game. Lasts a little on the long side. A game of Risk can go for a couple of hours, but I'll show you a trick at the end of this video and teach you how to shorten that up considerably. So to set the game up, you have the board, which is basically a map of the world showing the continents, and then each player picks a color. Here, for the video, we'll do red and green and blue. There's 6 dice, 42 cards. As you look at the cards, there's the trademark card, 2 jokers, and then there's a card for every territory on the board, and a little symbol here that I'll get to in a minute. To set the game up, each player picks a color, and depending on how many people are playing, determines how many armies each player gets. So basically in the game, you want to take over the entire map. You want one of your armies on each one of the territories. You do that by rolling the dice and fighting over each of the territories. So to get started, each player in a 3-player game, check the rules, there's a chart here in the rules. If there's 2 players in the game, each counts out 50 armies. If there's 3 players in the game, each counts out 35 armies. So each player would count out 35 armies for blue, 35 armies for red. Once each player has their armies, they take turns going around the board and putting 1 army on each of the territories. So we would each get our 35 armies. The goal of the game is to, in fact, take over all the territories in the board. So place your armies in such a way that you can maybe take over a continent to begin with, and then move on and take over more and more of the world. So roll the dice, see who gets to place the first army, and claim that territory, and then play goes around the board, and everyone takes turns picking out what territories they want to start with. So we roll the dice, maybe red goes first. So red maybe wants to start in Africa. Blue is interested in South America. Here I'm green, I'm going to try for North America. Red goes, blue goes, and you start to see where the lines are being drawn. Now, blue realizes that red's trying to take over Africa, and he doesn't want that to happen, so he puts a couple of his armies into Africa, and then maybe I do the same to blue, and red does the same to me. You don't want someone to get an entire continent, because if they do, they get extra armies later in the game. And everyone's concentrating on this. No one's even looking at Europe or any of these other continents over here. So I'm going to jump. Something that you might want to think about early in the game, try to get either Australia or South America. They're real easy to get. They're only 4 territories, and 4 territories each. And they don't have a lot of other adjacent territories to attack them. For example, the only way to get into Australia is through Indonesia, which is connected to Siam. So if you can defend Indonesia, you've got this whole continent. Likewise with South America. If you can defend Venezuela and Brazil, you can defend this whole continent, and as a result, when it comes up to be your turn, you'll get extra armies for having a whole continent. So consider trying to get some of the smaller continents early in the game to give you that little additional bonus armies. It was red's turn. Here, I'll go ahead and populate the board, and I'll fast forward so we can get into the game. Okay, here you can see we've each taken turns and claimed what we want to try to capture for our own in this game of Risk. So now at this point we take turns augmenting our armies and trying to build up our somewhat of a strategy so we can start to take over some of these continents. Red's got a real advantage in Africa. Blue might have a chance at South America. This is kind of mixed. I have a little bit of North America. I've got a little bit of Asia. I'm kind of spread out. Red and blue seem to have a little bit better advantage in this game. As you augment your armies, look at where your battle lines are. So for example, blue's going to have to take Argentina and defend Brazil from Argentina and North Africa here. So blue's probably going to want to build up these Blue's got Central America, so he's got a kind of a northern battle line here against eastern United States. So Blue's going to want to kind of build borders, build armies on his battle lines. I'm going to want to have these guys built up so I can work that way. Maybe I can push Red out of Asia here. So think about how you want to build up your battle lines. If you're Red, you really just need to get Congo. So maybe he wants to put some on North Africa, get rid of Congo, and then defend against Brazil. So I think it's Red's turn. So we go ahead and augment our armies. Fast forward. Here again, Blue realizes that it's pretty much a lost cause to take Australia, so he decides he's not going to add any more armies to New Guinea. He's going to concentrate on South America and maybe up into North America. So he'll just add his armies over here. Looks like our players have laid out their armies and they're ready to fight for the continents that they want, and in some cases maybe just cut their losses. So take the cards. Take out the trademark card, shuffle all the cards. First part of every turn is you're awarded armies for the number of territories that you have and potentially cards that you might cash in, but more on that later when we got some cards in our hand. So you'll want to count out, it's Blue's turn. We rolled the dice to see who goes first. Blue won the dice roll. And so Blue counts his territories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 divided by 3 is 4. Remainder 1 doesn't matter. Blue gets 4 additional armies for his territories to add wherever he wants to attack with, or maybe just to fortify for a later turn. Now let's talk about attacking. When you attack, when you want to try to take a territory, you announce where you're attacking from, where you're attacking, and with how many dice you're attacking. So for example, we rolled the dice and it's Blue's turn first. So Blue announces that he's attacking East Africa from Congo. He's got 3 armies on Congo and Red has 2 on East Africa. Now, when you roll the dice, you can roll 1 less than the number of armies you have, well, up to 3. So Blue has 3, so he can roll 2 dice. Red has 2, so he can roll 1. So both players will roll the dice at the same time. Blue has an outstanding roll, double 6s against Red's 1. So Red loses an army. It just goes back into the box. At this point, Blue can say again, meaning he'd like to do it again, or maybe focus his attention elsewhere. At this point, he's got a great chance of doing well here. So they roll their dice again, and you need to match up the highest dice with the highest dice. So it's the 4 against the 3, and the 2 does nothing. So in this case, the defender won, and Blue loses an army. Blue says again, but now he's down to 2 armies. He can only roll 1 die because he's going to have to move a number of armies equal to the number of dice, but he always has to leave an army behind. So in this case, he's going to leave one behind, so he's only got 1 army to compete with, so he can only roll 1 die. So it's 1 against 1. Blue did great. So that army goes away. He moves the number of armies of dice that he rolled, and he's successfully taken over East Africa. Now, at this point, after some battling, you can see I've gotten a couple of territories in North America, but I think to myself, do I really want to overextend myself and stretch my army so thin that somebody can move in and attack? I mean, if I try to attack Central America from here, I'm going to wear my armies thin, and then on their turn, they're just going to move in and clean me out. So you really need to be careful when you're playing this about how long you're going to attack, or if you just want to wait. The one thing I think you do want to do on every turn is make sure you take at least 1 territory, because you need to take a territory to get a card. So try to, if you can, get at least 1 territory early in the game, it might be a little tough. You might just want to reinforce a couple territories and pass. But if you think there's maybe one territory you can take, try for it without overextending yourself so you can get that card. So at this point, I look and I decide, well, you know what? I think I'm happy where I am. I took a territory. I get a card. I don't see anything that I really want to fortify at this point, so it's Red's turn. And you know the drill from here. Count up your territories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you can see Red has had a pretty good turn. Red's managed to conquer Africa and takes his card because he got a couple of territories back. He'll do his reinforcement move. Maybe just slide that guy up. And play continues. All right, Blue just finished their turn. Blue had a great turn. Blue managed to defend South America, pushed his line north into Central America, and also over into North Africa. This is a good advantage for Blue because now I had mentioned that if you can get an entire continent, you get extra armies. They're on my board, they're marked in these little circles here around so you can see. But for example, Red would have gotten 3 additional armies for the salmon-colored continent Africa. Blue is going to, at this point, get 2 additional armies for South America, and the rest of this is kind of up for grabs. But, you know, Blue's worn himself thin trying to take over some more of, it looks like he lost a lot of armies here in Southern Europe taking over North Africa. But that's great. He's got a good front line to defend what he's got in Central America. All right, let's see what happens as play continues. So here it is at the end of my turn. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get Blue out of Central America. I've worn my lines pretty thin here. So whatever. I don't even get a card. I got nothing. And you can see how the game starts to unfold. Blue has taken up a solid stance here in South America. There's definitely a skirmish between North and South America, between green and blue. So that'll continue. There's definitely skirmishes between Africa and South America over this connector line here. And then there really hasn't even, there's pretty much peace in Asia so far. It looks like Red has managed to take over all of Australia, so he's going to get some extra armies for that. He's got a nice line here that I think he's going to want to try to add some armies to. The interesting thing about Risk is that you get more and more armies as you move further into the game in a number of ways. Early in the game, we were just counting up our territories, which we'll continue to do, and divide by 3 to get your base set of armies. After that, there's other ways to get armies too. Let's take, for example, it's my turn. So I have a look and count my armies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so I get 4 armies. I don't have a whole continent anymore. Blue keeps pushing this line up. I can't manage to keep a hold of North America. If I could get all of North America, I would get 5 armies. That would help. The other way to get additional armies is with your cards. If you have either a matching set or 3 different ones, 3 soldiers or maybe a soldier, cavalry, and a field cannon, you can trade those in. As people trade in cards, they become worth more and more. So I'm a little desperate for armies here, so I'm going to trade in my cards. The rules will explain how many armies you get, but basically the first set turned in is worth 4, the next 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, and then from there it builds by 5s. So ensuing sets will get 20, 25, 30, and so on. So if you can, wait until later in the game to trade in your cards. Hopefully someone will have already traded in their cards and you'll get a couple more armies. If you have 6 cards, you have to turn in your cards because you can't ever hold more than 5 cards. So I have 5 cards and I'm going to, well, actually I have 4 cards. I stole one. I'm going to turn in this set of soldiers. Look closely to see if you own any of the cards that you're turning in. I don't at all. If I owned one of these territories, I would get 2 additional armies on that territory. I don't. I'm just going to get 4 additional armies for my cards. So they'll go at the bottom. Those will get reshuffled when we come to those again, but I'll get 4 more armies. I can put them wherever I want. I'm still trying to get North America here, so I'm going to build up this line. and I'll attack blue on my turn. Now, red's got an interesting situation. Red's got 2 territories, so when it's red's turn, if this stays pretty much the way it is, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 territories. So 19 divided by 3 is 6. He'll get 6 armies, but then he'll also get 2 for Australia and 5 for Europe. So he'll get his 4 plus 2 plus 5. So he'll get 11 armies to play his turn with. Maybe he decides, well, you know what? Green turned in his cards. Well, no, he can't turn in his cards yet. He's got 2 matches and he doesn't have, 3 of a kind or 3 different ones. So that's not an option. But still, he can start out his turn with 11 armies. One thing to watch for is to try to eliminate one of your opponents, because maybe red and I gang up on blue and try to get rid of him so we don't have to fight him anymore. Whoever can manage to wipe off a single player off the map gets all of his cards. Obviously, they'll get whatever territories they captured, but they also collect his cards. At that point, maybe I clean up blue, take all of his cards, and then I can hold them. If I have more than 5 cards at that point, I have to trade them in for however many the army count is up to. Immediately start playing with those armies. And then, so say blue gets eliminated, and then finally red wipes me off the face of the earth, and red wins the game by literally taking over the entire map. And that's how you win Risk. Yeah, a lot of people complain they don't like playing Risk because it just literally takes a long time. It's a long game. It's a fun game, but it's a long game. There's been a little rule change by Parker Brothers to make the game go a little quicker. The trick is, remember the trademark card? Stick it in the deck. And shuffle it in. What's this do? Puts an immediate ceasefire on the entire game. So now, the trademark card suddenly becomes ceasefire. So you've shuffled in that card. Somewhere in this deck is the end of the war. So you basically can play the game like I just described. You take a card if you can manage to capture a territory, and whoever draws the ceasefire card ends the game. You immediately count up how many territories each player has. Whoever has the most territories is the winner. End of game. Quick game. I hope you enjoy the game. Thanks for watching GameFluent, and I'll see you next time.